Welcome to Conversations in Between the Realms, a podcast where the mystical meets the everyday. Join Amanda Nova and Beth Renov each week as we dive into the profound journey of awakening, sharing our experiences, insights, and the lessons that guide us toward our divine purpose. Together, we awaken and guide our souls and others, exploring the magic of living in the 3D while staying connected to the higher realms, embracing the challenges, and celebrating the growth. You've been guided here for a reason. Trust in the journey and let the unfolding begin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Conversations in Between the Realms. I'm Amanda Nova, and I am here with Beth Renov, and we're here.
We're here. We're impassioned today.
Yeah, we're feeling the energy today. We're riding it. I feel like it's been a just interesting life the past few months starting out this year. And, I think we've all been cycling sort of in and out of this high energy, low energy, feeling connected, feeling disconnected. And today we really wanted to talk about going through these phases of feeling disconnected. But before we get into that, how have you been feeling lately? What's going on with you?
Feeling okay. I'm just really busy. Like I was telling you before, I save all my continuing ed credits till the last possible second. So I've been doing a lot of classes, working. But I feel like there is this sense of frustration, like the last few weeks of like people just trying to screw you over, and trying to get the best of you. And it has definitely driven me up a wall. And I will say I've been standing up for myself, like we were talking about. I'm like, I'm not going to be taken advantage of anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anybody else has been feeling that out there, but like it is even that like situation you're going through, like I'm just tired of businesses trying to take advantage of me, people trying to take advantage of me that I know, like I'm not going to put up with it. And if anything, it's made my boundaries like a lot more rigid and strong, which I could have probably used a little bit of help with. So I feel like it is the universe's way of being like, hey, here's the thing you have to work on right now.
Yeah, I think, I think it's interesting too, because I feel like it's almost like it's solidifying this feeling of like when you're who you are and you start to begin to really know who you are, it's easier to stand up for yourself. I think we're really stepping into, okay, we're not pretending anymore. We're sick of being walked all over. We're sick of pretending. We're sick of fakeness. I mean, there's just this lack of tolerance, I think, for people stepping all over our boundaries. I think just lack of tolerance of a lot of things. And I feel like a lot of people are feeling that right now. Like, I think everyone's just done. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because we're so tired too.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And, we're not going to take it anymore. Like, we're just not going to take it anymore.
I know,
that was in my head too. We're sick and tired and we're not going to take it anymore. But that's how we feel. Like we were just talking before, it's like almost for me too, it's definitely a shifting of identity, because I have always identified as being this like, I'm easy breezy. Like that's how I am. And like, I don't complain and I don't make ripples. And I'm very, I very much like consider myself or identify as being a smaller individual. I'm like, I never want to upset anybody. I never want to rock the boat, never want to cause any ripples. And, we were just talking, like something happened that upset me over, something silly, like a shipment that happened that didn't come. And, and I'm fighting for myself. And I didn't tell you this part. When I first was on the phone with the customer service, standing up for myself, Bob came in afterwards, like my husband, and he was like, I think there's a bad bitch on that line or whatever. And he was like, good for you. He was like, look at you go. He's like, I've never heard you do that before. And I wasn't nasty, like I wasn't yelling at them, but he was like, they were like trying to like take advantage of me. And he was like, you were like, nope, that's not gonna work for me. Nope.
Yeah,
but it's not happening.
Yeah, and good for you because I feel like that's something you really worked on. With me, I mean, Lauren and I joke that I'm like both of our mothers because our mothers like do not take shit.
Hmm.
So if we have a problem, like I have to get on the phone and be like, no,
Deal
this
with
isn't
it.
happening. And Lauren's like, I would actually like pay them extra because I just am
Yeah,
such a
that's how
people
I
pleaser.
usually am. Yeah,
Um,
I'm like, please, I'm a target for being taken advantage
I
of on a
I will
regular
not.
basis.
And like what I have done better is be like I used to freak out, like when I was younger because I'm like it must be some sort of trauma response. I don't know what from, but um it could be inherited, like maybe that's like a ancestral line or something or a past life, especially when you don't
Mhm.
know where it comes from.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just like you have to be assertive but kind, like
Hmm.
and like you can't just be a jerk, and like
Yeah.
there's no cursing, but I am like, okay, I just am like very repetitive. Like, I use the guy's name because this company is fully a scam company. I like their product, but at the same time, why do we have subscriptions for everything? I did not sign up for a subscription or it was in the like not fine writing, which whatever or
Hmm.
whatever it is. Um, but I canceled it and I have the proof of cancellation and they just did it anyway and added stuff into the subscription that I
Hmm.
never signed up for. And I like this guy's name was Jeremy. I'm like, Jeremy. I'm like, I already that's the ballsy move of me where I used to be like, fuck you, like
Yeah.
be unhinged. And now I'm like, Jeremy, I'm like, I have already like sent this to you. Here is the screenshot. I'm not sure. Can I please speak to a manager? I don't
Right.
care if you call me a
Oh, so
Karen.
you were like, let me you would say, okay,
Yeah.
Karen, can I
But
speak
you
to
know
the
what?
supervisor?
Why are we making fun of Karens when they get crapped on? And it's
Right.
like, okay, so we're not supposed to speak up for ourselves and like get something
Hmm.
resolved. Like that's a ridiculous thing to expect us not to do.
Right.
So whatever, but I will say like I feel like I stepped into my highest self because I was
Yeah.
exactly how I wanted to be. I was assertive and I got what I needed. And I did it and I'm not embarrassed by my behavior at all. And I think
Right.
that is such growth.
Right. I think when we feel bad about our behavior after we lash out or we react, like, it's always the way that I think about it is always like this react versus respond, right? Like, responding is when we take a minute and then we respond versus react is when we react, on emotion when something happens and we react really fast and we lash out and we scream and we curse and then we feel really guilty afterwards and we're like, oh, react that way, and respond, you can still respond in a strong way. And that's exactly like I did not get on the phone and belittle this person or disrespect them or curse at them. It's just that I am not somebody who assertively speaks for my wants and my needs, and because of that I often get taken advantage of in a lot of situations and I allow that to happen, and I just can't do that anymore because it just continues to hurt me. And, I don't want to be in spaces anymore. There's that line by, oh my God, I don't know if it's Glennon Doyle or somebody else. God, I'm going to mess this up totally now. But it's like being in spaces, places where I am not appreciated, right? Like I don't want to be in places where I'm not wanted, spaces where I'm not wanted, spaces where people are trying to take advantage of me. There is no hero on a white horse coming to save us. Like we have to stick up for ourselves, take up for ourselves, except for Lauren, who has you to take up for her
Yeah,
in
well,
these
she needs
situations.
to. But I like push her to do it for herself because I'm not always going to hold her hand and do it, Like she has to learn to stand up for herself. That's the best gift I could give her. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
enable her in any way, but sometimes I'm like, you're not doing a good job with this. I need to take over because I want our money back.
Right.
But like really what you're talking about is boundaries for yourself. It's like, what will
Yeah.
I accept of myself? Because when you let someone else take advantage of you, it might feel like, okay, I didn't have the confrontation, but then I have to sit with the resentment and the
Hmm.
anger and the disappointment and the feeling of like, why did I allow that? And when you're talking about reaction versus response, reaction is the past.
Hmm.
It's a past version of you. It's all of the stuff coming up that you haven't really dealt with. It's not feeling regulated. When you respond, it's your present. It's where I am
Right.
now. It's what I have worked on. It's showing my growth. And sometimes though, when you are not used to putting in your boundaries, you can feel really bad after
Mm-hmm.
implementing them because you're just not used to it. So there's a difference.
Right. Right.
If you have guilt about how you've acted, you have to ask, is it because I was just implementing my boundaries, or did I act in a way I'm not proud of?
Right. Right. Totally. And it's so funny because, I wrote this email and I wrote out everything that happened. And, I'm also, better when I am very sure that I am in the right.
Right.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there's also a difference between just,
Oh, yeah.
boundary.
Unloading.
Like, I was like, yeah, like, I was like, I know, I had the receipts, right? Receipts, timeline, I had it all, right? So but I was laughing at myself because I wrote this very, strong email and I timelined everything. And like, afterwards, I sent it and like my hands are like shaking. Like, I'm so proud of myself. My whole
Yeah.
body was like quivering because like the adrenaline was like coursing through me as it was coming out because I'm so not used to taking that stance. And I am proud of myself, and we'll see. I mean, it's still not really resolved, and we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna continue to stick up for myself, but I think in general, I kind of have been saying this for a while in some of my channelings, and I feel like this has been coming through for you as well for the collective, is like there really has been this shedding that we've talked about, but I think that we're really realizing that we are not the same versions of ourselves. And now, once you realize that and you're like, okay, I'm standing in my higher self, and there's this new version of me that we've wanted that for a long time. We call that in and we work on that, but then once we see it and we realize it, then you're like, okay, wait, things aren't aligning the way that they maybe were before. Relationships aren't aligning the way they were before, right? And so you start to notice things shifting. And I feel like, and the reason why I'm saying that is because we wanted to talk about disconnecting and what sort of happens when you start standing in your highest self, is that the things that maybe once you were connected to start feeling a little
Yeah.
bit disconnected. Does that,
Right.
I know you're like, where is she going with this? But now do you understand
Yeah.
where I was going? Yeah.
I just was thinking about in connection with
Yeah.
that because I kept seeing like pictures. Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, because if you're talking about shedding, you're shedding a skin. You
Mm-hmm.
don't just like take off because it's the year of the fire horse, like
Right. Right.
when you're naked, you're vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't have the same protections. You have to relearn protection. You have to
Mm-hmm.
grow a new skin before you can really take off.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't talk about that, when they're
Right.
like, oh, that was the year of the snake. You were shedding everything. Now you're going to take off. But there's
Right.
an in between, which we're in, where you feel really disconnected
Right.
because
Like get
it's
on the horse and go, and you're like,
no,
where's my horse?
like how do I have armor now to protect
Right.
myself?
Right.
Like, this doesn't feel familiar. I don't really feel safe enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I just read something yesterday, which I now understand why, but like, you heal when you feel safe. But how
Mm-hmm.
can you feel safe when you've shed everything you knew that was comfortable for you? It doesn't mean it
Mm-hmm.
was the best for you, but it was really comfortable and familiar. So,
Right.
how do we acclimate to this? And that's where you feel disconnected because you're like, that just doesn't resonate anymore. And I don't know
Right.
what does resonate. So you're in this
Right.
limbo where you're just like, I feel so disconnected. But in those moments where you start standing up for yourself, that's creating a new skin, that's bringing on a new
Right.
armor. So it's like you
Right.
might not recognize it in the same way. But like now that we're talking, I'm like, oh, these were the moments that we were actually like being
Building
connected
it.
in yes,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
different way.
Yeah. Well, okay. And so something that I think is really interesting, and what you said is exactly where I was trying to go with this, is that what happens is like, okay, so now you're in the in between, right? So you're jumping out of that skin and you're in this darkness, you're in this void, you're in this free fall. And what do we want to do? We want to latch onto the things that make us feel safe. So we
Mm-hmm.
start trying to reach for old things. And you and I just spoke about this yesterday, because you start thinking in your head, okay, what are the things that make me feel safe? And you start reaching for the old things. Well, this used to make me feel good. This used to make me feel good. This used to work. And then you start doing those things or trying those things, and you're like, this isn't working the way it used to work anymore, because you're not the same person. So you're like, this isn't working. And that starts to feel really scary, because then you're like, oh my God, nothing's working. And you start to feel even more unsafe, because, to your point, you need to build new patterns, new habits. You need to find new safety. And that's why it feels so dark in that period, because you don't know what those new things are yet. And
No.
you start to build those new things as you're going through it. And the hardest part is letting go of those security blankets, because that's tough.
Yeah.
When you reach for something that you thought was something that like used to be really one of your safety blankets and it's not anymore, that's a hard moment. Like, this used to work, why isn't it working anymore?
Right.
That's hard. You're like, what's going on? And then you're like, what do I do?
Right.
But each step through the dark, you start to try new things. You
Mm-hmm.
start to have these moments of validation, of confirmation, and you just start to feel into what's right. And maybe this feels good, and maybe that feels good. You start to build that new identity, that new self, and that new armor, so to speak, that new skin, right? I mean, and
Absolutely.
that's what happens.
Definitely. And you might feel like you're going through a dark night of the soul because you're just like, I don't recognize anything and I don't recognize myself. So you
Mhm.
start to question everything, because you're like, if that doesn't work, did I do the right thing? Am I like sacrificing the right things? Did I shed the right stuff? Should I have held on to different things? Why does this feel so crappy if it's pushing me in the right direction? Right?
Mhm. Yeah. It's really, really scary. And I think it can feel really isolating, and it does feel really dark. It's so much human nature to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really is, the natural thing is like, I want to retreat. And
Yeah.
that is really the point where a lot of people let go, or they do go backwards, or where they give up. And you kind of had said this to me, and I think maybe we even talked about this last week, because I've been feeling this lately a lot, and I know you've been feeling it too. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is not something that we are beyond. Like, Beth and I we've been in this period recently. Like, we're in it with you guys. And we were just having this conversation, and you were like, this is literally where it happens. Like, this
Yeah.
is like just beyond here is where the magic happens. But it's like where a lot of people give up, and they're
Mhm.
like, nope, nope, this is uncomfortable. I'm going back to the old habits. I am not doing this. Like, I can't, it's uncomfortable. And then what happens, and it's like even worse, is you then go back to the old stuff, and then you just feel like shit. So I'm in the old stuff, and then you feel even worse. But it is where a lot of people give up. And
Right.
you just have to push through that period to get to
Yes.
the good stuff.
But sometimes reverting back, you understand that it doesn't work for you and it might feel crappy, but it also allows you to see like, oh, this just wasn't right. Like
Mhm.
it's normal to like revert or regress, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Sometimes you need to do that to understand, oh, okay, this is why I was giving it up. It really
Right.
doesn't work for me. I just wasn't aware of it because I was so in it in routine and
Right.
pattern and I wasn't being present in actually doing the thing or having the thing, So it's not the worst thing in the world if you do, So
Right.
don't
It
beat yourself
happens.
up. Right.
Right.
It's just like learning to have compassion for yourself in this really like that is going to be your best friend is having compassion. Like we were both like, we can't do the podcast because it just like nothing's coming up for us because our brains
Mhm.
weren't there. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't do weekly channeled messages because nothing was coming through because I was so blocked that I was
Mhm.
just like, my brain's not working. What I need is not to push myself right now. I need to actually just allow myself to rest and allow inspiration and motivation to come back. And yes, motivation is sometimes you have to do to get, but it was just more like, I need a rest. I need a
Yeah.
break. And
Yeah.
we allow that for ourselves. And then again, this week, we're like, oh my God, that's such a good podcast topic. I needed that
Right.
feeling again of like, ooh, that
Right.
spark,
Right. Right. And I think that there's like a permission that
Hmm.
happens. And we talk about this a lot, about that allowance, that permission. And I think it's like we force ourselves to push through and we force ourselves to feel sometimes when we don't. Like we try to force the connection. It's not something that can be forced. And, we were having this conversation through that, like both of us just feeling so disconnected, so blah. And like Beth was just like, you know what, like, if we're not feeling this, like, like maybe let's take a break, let's take some time off, like we'll take off some, like a few weeks, we'll come back or whatever. And then like yesterday we're talking and we're like, let's do an episode this week. Like we literally like took zero time off, like we literally
Right.
took no time off, took a week off, like big deal. But like that's what we needed. And I took the weekend off from working because I really needed that. Like I needed to take a couple of days off in a row to find my reconnection with myself. And I also think like in that quiet space too, like of that allowance of like you don't have to do this. Like you can take a break. You can let go for a second. Like you can like it's okay to not feel like doing this right now. Like it's okay to just to not push for a second. I think you also have to acknowledge the pieces of you that are different and how far you've come. Because I think we bulldoze so much through the little mini successes that we have that
Hmm.
we think that we're the same person, but we're not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we think that we are the same version of ourselves, just like moving through, but we're not. Like, I had this moment earlier today. We had a conversation yesterday where we realized, where something came through about me, right? Where we like noticed something about me and about my personality and about the way I handle things. And, about, me just being probably a little bit, I mean, I have no vulnerability. I mean, we realized that I'm a little bit ADHD. I probably have been my whole life. An older version of me would have went down a ADHD rabbit hole
Hmm.
and then would have literally gotten like ADHD merch, like literally would have come onto the podcast wearing an ADHD hat and like literally started like I would have started like a
Business.
ADHD like an ADD like podcast and
Yeah.
like Instagram and like would have then been like the leader of all things related to that. I did one ChatGPT search to see the signs, which I read to my husband and to
Hmm.
my mom, just and that was it.
Hmm.
Beth, I did zero rabbit
Amazing.
holing. And like in the past, I would have taken on an entirely new identity. Like, right? Like I would have gone down an entire thing. And it was for me this morning, I was like, wow, I have come so far.
Hmm.
So far. Like, I literally like Beth, like I literally would have a shirt on that said like, hi, I'm Amanda, I have ADD. I literally would have been like
Yeah.
petitioning somewhere. Like,
Right.
it's just the way that I've always been because I have been a soul in search of an identity for a really, really long time. And it's taken me a long time to be so solid in myself that I don't need to put on all these identities just to learn things about myself and accept them and continue to move forward without having to go so deep into things. And so my point with that was that when I had that moment, I realized, wow, a lot of the work that I've been doing for a decade is working. And I feel like sometimes we need to have those moments because we get stuck in the day to day and we get stuck in the like, well, oh my God, I've been manifesting for a million years and I'm not a millionaire yet. Like, fuck? You kind of get in these spaces and you're like, well, I'm not where I wanted to be and I'm not, here. But like, it's those little things that you begin to notice that you're really not the same person you were
Hmm.
yesterday, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And those are the things that keep you moving forward.
Well, that's the measuring stick of growth. is when you realize you aren't reacting in the way you used to. Because with this work, you're not going to dig a ditch. Like, I feel like this is my most common analogy for my clients is like, you're not seeing how far deep and how wide, like, you're digging this ditch. Like, it's not manual labor. You're not going to see the physical, tangible evidence. So it's in moments like that where you're like, oh my God. And there's such a sense of pride because that is such hard work. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to act differently. It takes so much like um neural pathway, like changing your neural
Mm-hmm.
pathways. It takes so much awareness. It takes so much discomfort of letting go of a certain way of being and adopting something new, having that become familiar and not over identifying with things.
Mm-hmm.
So that is so much work, probably harder than digging a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really such a beautiful moment, like, for yourself and anybody who's watched you go through this process, to be like, wow, like, I've come so far. And that is your highest self coming through.
Right. And I want other people to understand that, like, that that for me has always been a coping mechanism, and I want people to understand that it is possible to
Change that.
change that. Like, you don't have to always be in that, and that there is this moving through. And what I would say is moving through even when you're in the in between, because I would say that this period of time right now for me has been an in between. Like I was saying, like, that both of us have had, like, it's been a little bit dark lately.
Mm-hmm.
That to me could have easily been something right now, with me not feeling so great, could have totally been something that I, like, clung to. Like, that could have been
Right.
like a little raft for me. Like, I would have been like,
Right.
this is so great. This is what I am right now. And like, I could have totally used that to cope. But it's just, that's not who I am anymore. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. And I think that it's possible to find your way through and be okay being in the in between and being in the darkness and being like, okay, life is a cycle and it continues to cycle, right? And everything is a cycle. We cycle through our menstrual cycles, we cycle through life, we creativity cycles. Everything is a cycle. And you're not going to always be in the blooming period. I mean, look at the seasons. We're coming into spring. We're coming out of the winter, which is literally darkness, right? That is
Mhm.
literally the in between,
Right.
right? I mean, we're in between the fall and the spring. That's the in between. It's the darkness. It's the period where you go behind the scenes and you build things, and you plant, and then they bloom in the spring. And that's literally what we're coming into right now, right? Like, we're in the spring, we're in the blooming. And so, I just kind of want to, also just let people know that, like, if you have been feeling that way, like we have,
Mm-hmm.
we are also moving into a time where there are going to be little sprouts beginning to come up and blooming. And you just kind of have to look for, like, the little sprouts where you can see them, because they are coming up and they are going to begin to sprout. But they need rain, and they needed that darkness too.
Absolutely. Like, there's a purpose for it. And also, are your expectations unrealistic? Are you expecting things to come out fully formed because they're not going to?
Always. Me,
And
yes.
also, like, is your expectation of feeling connected like a rigid routine of meditating, like channeling, of doing yoga, of doing rituals? That's not always what connection looks like. It's that moment where you sit with yourself and say, oh my God, I acted differently. Like,
Hmm.
I am being in this moment of awareness of how I've changed. And for me, we were kind of like, I feel so disconnected, but like, even this morning, I've been in a really irritable mood for like the past 3 weeks. And my go to is anger and feeling self righteous. So, like, Lauren will piss me off, probably more because I'm just irritable and that's the person I can like blame. But,
It's
like,
always
it's
our
our
spouse and our loved ones
spouse.
always get the most of it.
Right. So I haven't been sleeping. So Iggy has been getting up at like in the middle of the night. So I get up, and when like he went in with her because she gets up earlier than me, and she didn't bring him downstairs to her office, and he was barking and woke me up. And I went into this like, oh, she's so inconsiderate. And
Oh
then
my
I
God.
was just like, why do you have to be self-righteous and be like, you're the one that does everything? She's
Right.
so horrible. Like, it's like I stop myself. I'm like, I wish he had done something differently. It felt
Right.
so much better to be like that than
Yeah.
like go on this hate spiral, And
Right.
like I realized in that moment, I'm like, I feel better. Wow, this is me connecting with like my highest self to act in the way that I actually like,
Right.
and I
Right.
feel proud of, and that actually helps my nervous system stay regulated. And I fell asleep right after, So it's like those little moments. You don't have to be meditating and connecting and being this version of what we think spirituality and connection looks like.
Yeah.
It's finding what your way of connecting is. And it
Right.
might not be that woo woo kind of way. It can be in the
Yeah.
self work, in the self awareness, in the recognition and acknowledgement,
Mhm.
and feeling proud of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be just taking a breath
Right. Resting.
during your busy day, like reminding yourself to take a deep inhale. It doesn't have to be, I've been having a really hard time sticking to a routine that I used to have. I was so, and that's been a lot of my struggle, right? Is I was like, I used to do energy work on myself and do breath work every single day. And now I'm not doing that. And I have been giving myself the hardest time trying to get back to that, but then realizing I'm never going to get back to that. I have to build something new because there's an old version of myself that needed that. Me now needs something else. And that's the switch that we're talking about, really, right? Like, it's like, okay, like that's what my old self needed. And that really helped me. And I do want to be connected, but right now it's in different ways and I need different things. So it's about finding those methods and those things. And, like we always say, having the support, having the help. If you haven't tried to do something, if you've tried all the things yourself and you haven't tried having support, having a session with Beth or I, or doing it that way, or try something different, even if it's not with us, I would say, like, my homework to everybody, try one thing out of the box, like just one thing, try that you haven't done, like literally color if you haven't colored,
Right.
go one thing you haven't done.
Or give yourself permission to
Yeah.
not do something.
Or not do
Do
anything,
it.
or do
Right.
nothing.
Or do nothing.
Thing, or try one
What
thing.
is it that you're trying to force yourself to do, and give yourself permission to do the opposite? I think
Yeah,
that could be the
exactly.
something different,
Yeah.
And listen, I think sometimes it speeds up the process when you have someone like Amanda or I, and like, or me, I don't know, grammatically correct, but I think, listen, we're in an economically hard time, so I understand that everybody, this is not their priority necessarily, but maybe it's an
Mhm.
investment in yourself if you do, to push yourself a little bit faster, because you get the benefit of feedback,
Mhm.
and
Get something
something that maybe
moving.
you couldn't bring in, right?
Mhm.
So, but if you can't, it doesn't mean you can't have results.
Mhm.
So try something different. If it's just giving yourself permission to take a break, to not be so hard on yourself, to maybe see something in a different way, journal. Journaling is a
Mhm.
really, really great way to see things that, and allow yourself and your stream of consciousness to come up and address something that maybe you were holding in. So
Yep.
I think that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're here for you. Check out our social medias for free resources, or check out some of our old podcasts
Hmm.
for other ideas as well. And we will catch you guys on the next one.
Yes. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.